where I used to exist. Where does my name still live? Have you ever tried walking back in time, simply by standing still? You don't need to visit your old house. You don't need to meet anyone from the past. Sometimes all it takes is a cold breeze, a flickering street light, or a message you never expected to make you wonder, do I still exist in anyone's memory? There were days I wandered the old streets, not searching for anything in particular, just to see if anyone would still recognize the name that once echoed in these corners. Sometimes, one text message, one piece of bread shared in silence. That's all it takes to realize. Some people don't disappear because they're poor. They vanish because no one calls them by who they truly are anymore. Sometimes, one person is enough to hold you back from the edge. Sometimes, what breaks a man isn't the absence of help. It's the absence of someone who still remembers his name. I once sat beneath an abandoned bus stop in Columbus, wrapped in a worn-out coat, hands trembling from cold, hunger, and a deeper kind of ache, the ache of not knowing what I was waiting for. My days passed without direction. I survived on moldy bread, rainwater, and the backs of people walking away. No one knew who I used to be. No one cared. There were days I just stared at my own hands, wondering if they could still feel, or if they'd gone numb like the rest of me. At some point, you stop fearing death. What you fear more is a life with nothing to live for. And then, one night, nothing special, just rain, cold, and dark. I was hiding beneath the awning of a closed convenience store, hunched like a thief of memories. My body was tired, but sleep wouldn't come. I just stared at a flickering street lamp, watching it try and fail to stay alive. Suddenly, my old Nokia phone buzzed, a relic of who I used to be. The screen lit up dim but steady. One message from Clara. I froze. How long had it been since I heard that name? Clara, my little sister, the girl who once chased me down the block to hand me a banana when I was late for school. The one who drew a sun on our crumbling wall so Mom wouldn't see the crack. Her message was short, very short. I'm not mad at you. I just hope you come back to life. That was it. No questions. No guilt. No, where are you? No, why did you leave? Just one hope, that I would live again. I cried. For the first time in what felt like forever, I cried like a child. Not from pain, not from regret, but because someone still held my name in their heart. Victor, a name I hadn't used in years. No longer in any record. No longer in anyone's mind. Even in the mirror, I couldn't say it out loud. And yet, it still lived. Somewhere. I sat there for a long time, holding that phone, not replying, not knowing how. I was scared that if I answered, she'd see what I had become. And I didn't want anyone, especially her, to witness what was left of me. So I let the message sit, untouched, like something fragile that I didn't dare break. From that night on, I began to listen to my own footsteps again, to remember the streets I had once walked, to wonder, just a little, if I still had the right to exist. Not for me, but for her, I didn't want Clara to send another message into silence. My name is Victor, and that night, for the first time in a very long time, it began to breathe again. I used to be someone they couldn't forget. I once believed that if I became good enough, no one would dare forget me. That if I reached high enough, they'd have to remember as a benchmark, a role model, a name that couldn't be left out of the story. Back when I stood under bright lights, being interviewed, invited to Vegas, poured drinks by women I barely knew, named the face of the new startup generation by tech magazines, I truly thought I had built a life that couldn't be erased from the map. But every spotlight is artificial. Once the power goes out, what remains is only darkness. When I disappeared, no one came looking. There were no missing person posters with my photo. No whispers of, "Where did he go?" No questions. No mentions. My name, once printed on conference banners and magazine covers, became so unnecessary that people simply stopped using it. Who did I used to be? A genius? A reckless fool? A man betrayed? Or just someone too impatient to stand up after falling? I didn't know, but I remembered everything that once belonged to me. I remembered the first pair of leather shoes I bought, with money from coding software, the smell of old books in the library, where I taught myself how to program, the laughter of Evelyn, the only woman who ever made me feel worthy of love. I remembered, not because I wanted to, but because I had lost it all, thinking I'd always have something better waiting. Now it's different. Now I sit alone in the park. When it rains, sometimes I don't even move. Not because I'm numb, but because there's nowhere left to go. I was no longer someone they couldn't forget. I was just someone who once believed that. The thing I feared most during that time was not death. It was this, the thought that the last person who remembered my name might stop saying it out loud. Clara didn't remind me who I was. She simply said, "I just hope you come back to life." That sentence, gentle, without blame, shattered something inside me. I had once been someone worth hoping for, and if I had been that man before, maybe, just maybe, I could find him again. Not to return to a stage, not to reclaim fame or money, but to return to myself, to the boy who used to dream, to the man who once dared to write his way out of destiny. I used to be that man. I just forgot. Half a loaf, and the trust that survived. It was a freezing night. Rain tapped against the cracked bricks behind my back, but the cold no longer made me shiver. My body had gone numb days ago. I just knew that if I didn't wake up the next morning, no one would notice. The world would keep spinning. People would walk past this alley thinking I was just another pile of trash, or some addict who didn't make it through the night. I was curled beneath the overhang of an old station. Rain swept in sideways. My coat was soaked. My hands shook. There wasn't a single dry cup nearby to hold. I don't remember how long I sat there, but when I looked up, an old man was sitting beside me. He wore a torn raincoat. In his hands was a battered tin can, steam rising from something dark and bitter smelling. Coffee, burnt, but warm. For the first time in days, My stomach twisted from hunger. He looked at me quietly and held out half a leftover sandwich wrapped in wax paper. I shook my head, almost instinctively. He just smiled, voice gravelly. I'm not sharing because I have plenty. I'm sharing because I know sometimes you don't need to be full. You just need someone to remember that you're hungry. I froze. That sentence struck a place I thought had already gone hollow. I looked at him for the first time. Weathered face, deep creases, but kind eyes. Not judging, not pitying, just speaking like someone who had once been where I was now. We sat there in silence. Only the sound of rain pooling around our feet. Then he began to speak. Not to preach, not to impress, just to release. I used to teach applied mathematics at a major university, he said. Got accused of faking research. It was a setup, clever too. Within 6 months, I lost everything. Job, reputation, friends, marriage. I tried to fight it. Lost. Because I didn't have money. Then I disappeared. I didn't say a word. Just stared at the can in his hands. They trembled slightly, but he held it with steady purpose. I don't know why, I asked, but the words came out. Did you ever think about ending it? He didn't answer right away. Took a sip of the burnt coffee, then nodded. Yeah? At Central Station, 2 bottles of vodka. I laid down, waiting for my heart to stop. He exhaled, not sadly, just distant. But then this kid, maybe 8 years old, shook me awake and said, Hey mister, can you watch my bag? I gotta use the bathroom. He smirked slightly. Didn't quite smile, but there was something alive in his eyes. That kid trusted me. Drunk as I was, lying there on the floor. He trusted me. So I woke up, not because I wanted to live, but because someone still believed I wasn't worthless. I went still, didn't feel the rain, didn't feel the cold, only the pulse pounding in my ears. Something cracked open inside me. Not loudly, just enough to let the silence in. Then he turned and asked, What's your name? I hesitated. My voice was hoarse. Victor. He squinted, repeated it. Victor, the victorious one. Then tilted his head. Do you know why your parents gave you that name? I didn't answer, but an old image surfaced. My father, when I was little, sitting beside my bed during a fever, whispering, You'll overcome hardship. You'll overcome fate. Your name is the hope I gave you. I hadn't thought about that in years, but that night, soaked, nameless, forgotten, beside a stranger who didn't need to know my story, I remembered, not to grieve, but to understand. My name wasn't random. I mattered to someone once. I was given a name filled with belief. And if someone had once believed in me, maybe I could try, just a little, to believe in myself again. Not to win the world, just to stop losing quietly. When belief isn't enough to save you. I left the station that night, not because I had anywhere to go. The rain had stopped, and I didn't want to be the last one left behind. I didn't say goodbye, didn't thank him, didn't even know what direction I was walking. I just walked, like something inside me wouldn't let me stay. But something felt different. My feet still dragged like before, My chest still felt hollow, but the name Victor started echoing in my head again, like a word I hadn't heard in years. That name didn't save me, but it made me uneasy, as if I'd been trying to forget something real for far too long. The following days were the same. Sidewalks, leftover food, chasing pockets of warmth near gas stations and bus stops. But I wasn't the same. I kept hearing Harold Finch's voice, the story of the little boy who trusted him, the meaning of my name, the idea that belief, while not strong enough to lift you, might still stop someone else from giving up on you completely. That line kept circling back in my head. I'm not sharing because I have plenty. I'm sharing because I know sometimes you don't need to be full. You just need someone to remember you're hungry. Only then did I realize some lessons don't exist to be acted on. They exist so you can't pretend you never heard them. I still wasn't ready to come back to life. Not because I lacked motivation, but because I hadn't forgiven myself yet, hadn't found a reason to believe I deserved a second start. I saw something in Harold's eyes that reminded me of my father. Not disappointment, not pity, but a quiet kind of grace that said, I still see you. And that hurt more than failure. Knowing someone once believed in me and probably still thought I was dead. No one was asking me to change. No one was begging me to rise again. But that night planted a quiet question in my chest. Am I wasting the last bit of belief this world might still hold for me? I didn't know the answer. And maybe most people who fall this far never do. All I knew was, after that night, I stopped denying my name, not because I was ready to live again, but because I didn't want to disappear quietly one more time. When even one step feels too much, there's a kind of tiredness that doesn't live in the body. It settles in the chest, where every question has already been asked, and every answer still isn't enough to pull you out of the hole you dug for yourself. I started wandering the same old streets, as if checking whether I still existed. My legs moved, but my mind was vacant. Every storefront, every traffic light, every cracked sidewalk, they looked at me without needing to say anything. Sometimes I'd stand in front of a bus stop window, staring at my own reflection. Not admiring, just wondering, was that really me once? I hated it. Hated remembering Finch's voice. Hated Clara's message echoing back. Hated seeing my father's face in every silence. And still, I did nothing. I asked myself, if these were the things that were supposed to save me, why was I still here? Why couldn't I take even one real step out of the shadow I had curled into? The answer, as usual, was silence, and it made me angry. So angry, there were nights I punched brick walls, just to feel pain, not to wake up, just to prove I wasn't fully dead yet. I talked to myself in my head. Some days I cursed myself. Other days I apologized. Other times I denied everything. There were nights I whispered Victor to myself 10 times in a row, just to see if it meant anything. Every time I said it, it felt like a test. Was I still someone worth responding to? Usually, the answer was number. But what tortured me more was that I kept calling anyway. No one was saving me, but no one was pulling me down either. I was stuck between two things. One let go completely, like I had been doing, to listen to the voices from the past and bear them. And that was the hardest part. Not the pain, but the responsibility of knowing things I could no longer unknow. The lessons I couldn't pretend I hadn't heard. The people who once believed in me, I couldn't pretend they never existed. So I didn't stand up, not because I was weak, but because I knew if I stood once, I couldn't return to the old me. And I wasn't sure I had the courage to leave that version behind. Hiding is the fastest way to disappear from yourself. I used to believe that if I stayed quiet long enough, my mistakes would eventually fade. That if I didn't face them, they'd rot away on their own. No one would bring them up. No one would remember. And maybe, just maybe, I could pretend I never existed at all. But strangely enough, the longer I stayed silent, the louder the voice inside me became. It didn't scream, didn't blame. It just asked, "How long are you going to hide?" I had no answer, because honestly, I didn't even know what I was hiding from anymore. Was it my father's disappointment, Clara's trust, or the version of me who once had everything and threw it all away? I wasn't sure. All I knew was I was fading. No one called. No one asked. And I slowly stopped remembering who I used to be. The scariest part wasn't being forgotten by the world. It was waking up one morning, staring into a puddle, and not being able to say my own name. I realized hiding didn't make the pain go away. It only made me get lost inside it. Like walking deeper into a hallway, thinking I was escaping the storm, when in truth, I was just walking farther into a place no one could find me. And every time I refused to face the truth, I traded away another piece of who I was, until there was nothing left to hold on to. And that's when it hit me. Silence doesn't heal wounds. It just teaches you how to bleed quietly. The places that once held me now don't need to remember. I was there. I started walking past old places again, not looking for anything. Just one morning, I wanted to see if there was any trace of me left behind. The corner grocery store, the one that gave me $200 for my first inventory software, still standing. The sign had changed, but the little ting of the doorbell when someone walked in, still exactly the same. I stood across the street, didn't go in. No one noticed me, and I wasn't even sure anyone inside had ever heard the name Victor Dominic. I passed my old high school. The gate had new paint. The roof had been redone. But the back courtyard, where I used to sit for hours to avoid going home, looked untouched. I remembered arguing with a teacher there, refusing to study HVAC repair. I wanted to learn programming. I remembered my father's furious stare. And the night I ran away, clutching my Pascal book like it was my only heartbeat. Looking at it now, all that fire, just mossy walls and a broken bench. No one remembers. But everything's still there, like a fossil of a boy who once believed he'd build something that mattered. Then came the city library, my old refuge, where I read philosophy books I wasn't supposed to, where Mr. Jack, the old librarian, kept the hard books aside just for me. He's gone now. My corner desk dusty. The lamp no longer glows. but someone else was sitting there. A student, headphones in, writing with a red pen. I watched him for a while, not with jealousy, just he didn't need to know someone had sat there before, and I didn't need to be remembered. Finally, I turned down the street that once held the silent wounds of my teenage years, near an old bus stop where classmates used to mock me as starving Dominican. My accent too thick, skin too brown, thoughts too fast. So I didn't fit. I was once a boy too different to belong. Not wrong, just misaligned with their expectations. Now, that corner wall is still there. Fresh graffiti covers the old slurs. No one is shouting. No one is laughing. But in my mind, I still hear those echoes. The jeers. Then, silence. I was special once, in that strange, lonely, easily bruised way. And now, when no one calls me special anymore, I realize I'm afraid of something deeper than loneliness. I'm afraid I was once special, only to vanish, like I never existed at all. It's okay to be forgotten, as long as you lived truly. I used to believe that if no one remembered me, maybe I had never really existed. But after walking through those old places, standing quietly in front of memories that no longer carried my name, I began to understand. Existence doesn't depend on being remembered. It depends on how you lived, even if no one wrote it down. I used to tie my worth to recognition. The magazine covers, the conferences, the invitations, the wealth, the admiring looks. So when the applause stopped, I thought all my value vanished with it. But standing outside that grocery store, that school, that library, something shifted. What I built, even silently, still held space. No one knew my name, but that software still ran. That chair still had someone reading in it. That old idea, though unnamed, still lived somewhere. I was no longer part of the story, but I had never truly disappeared. There's a special kind of pain, the pain of giving everything, only to find out no one noticed. But there's also a strange kind of freedom, the freedom of knowing you don't need to be remembered as long as you didn't betray yourself. No one needs to build statues of me. No one needs to hang my picture on a wall. But I want to know that in the years I had breath, through all the madness, stubbornness, and mistakes, I didn't cower from my own longing to matter. And the final truth I learned, quietly, without applause, was this: it's okay to be forgotten. Just don't forget who you were. When there's nothing left to hold and nowhere clear to go, there are nights I don't sleep. Not because I'm afraid, but because I'm not sure if I should wake up the next morning at all. I sat alone in the corner of a public library, the same one that used to be my refuge as a boy. No one noticed me. No one asked me to leave. I didn't read, didn't write. I just sat there, as if waiting for a verdict, not from anyone else, but from the only judge left, myself. Inside, a quiet war raged. Keep going? For what? Is this even called living? But if I let go, if I really didn't get up one morning, would anything change? Would anyone know? Would anyone need to? Maybe. That was the only decision left. I still had the power to make. I felt like I was standing between two cliffs. One side held the familiar darkness, the comfort of surrender, of no responsibility, no need to try. It whispered, just let it all fade. No one's asking anything from you anymore. The other side wasn't light, just a foggy unknown. No promises, only the weight of enduring a little more. Opening my eyes, dragging my body through one more day, gnawing through hours with no guarantee I was moving anywhere at all. I didn't want either, but there wasn't a third option. That was the darkest moment, not because no one stood beside me, but because even I stopped standing up for myself. I didn't cry, didn't scream. Just, for the first time, I heard a voice inside whisper, if you don't choose, death will choose for you. And I understood. Rebirth doesn't begin with action. It begins with the moment you look directly at the desire to end and choose not to follow it. That night, I didn't stand up, didn't move, didn't change anything. But when the sun came up, I was still sitting there. And maybe that was the first time I didn't walk away. Just don't disappear again. I don't know how long I sat in that library corner. Maybe a few hours. Maybe all night. No one looked at me. No one asked. No one saved me. But no one pushed me away either. I didn't do anything. Didn't plan. Didn't write a comeback. Didn't restart. I just didn't leave. For the first time in years, I let myself stay in one place, not because I had nowhere to go, but because I didn't want to disappear again. I don't know what that meant. Didn't know where I'd go in the morning. Didn't know if I was ready to live like a person again. But I knew that at least that night, I had chosen not to walk out on myself. I wasn't erasing footprints anymore. Wasn't pretending I had never been here. I let the name Victor sit quietly in my head. Didn't repeat it. Didn't whisper it. Just let it exist. Like a fading ember. Not enough to warm anything, but not cold yet either. Maybe rebirth doesn't come with fireworks. Maybe it starts on nights like this. Quiet, heavy, when you simply stop running, even if you don't know where else to go. And if someone were to ask me, what did you do to survive that night? I wouldn't have a clear answer. I just stayed. With myself, with the unanswered questions, with all the exhaustion, regret, and silence. And maybe that's what saved me.
I once asked my father, does rebirth always start with a big decision? He looked at me for a long time. Then he shook his head. Number. Sometimes it just starts on a night. You decide not to leave. Not because you found a reason to live, but because you don't want to disappear again. I didn't grow up with a father who seemed invincible. I grew up with a man who once sat for a very long time in silence, fighting not to give up on himself. No spotlight, no miracle, just a quiet kind of persistence. To stay, with the pain, with the shame, with the fatigue, and not disappear. And maybe that alone was how my father survived. In the years when most believed he already hadn't. Hello everyone, I'm Lily, the youngest daughter of Victor Dominic. My father shared these stories, not to be remembered, but to remind us. Everyone deserves a new beginning, even the broken ones. Some names and places have been changed for privacy. But free your soul is real, and it's the most precious legacy he left us. Today, I'm sharing it with you, hoping it reaches someone who needs a quiet, gentle whisper. Thank you for listening with your heart. I'll see you in the next stories.